just a narrow wooden door in the corner of my small room. But something about it made me uneasy, even in daylight. My mom said I was being silly, that I'd watched too many scary cartoons, but I could never shake the feeling that something was wrong with it. Every night as I lay in bed, I'd catch myself staring at that closet door. It always looked a little open, just a crack, never fully shut. I used to get up, close it, and climb back into bed. Minutes later, I'd look again, and it would be open again. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Kids have wild imaginations, right? But one night, something changed. That night, the wind outside howled like it was alive. The tree branches scraped against my window, and I pulled the blanket over my head. I heard the sound again, the faint creak of the closet door opening. My heart pounded. I peeked out from the blanket, and sure enough, the door was ajar. I whispered, "Stop it," as if the door would listen. But then I heard breathing. Not my breathing, something else's. It was low and raspy, like someone was crouched just behind that door, inhaling and exhaling with effort. I froze. My eyes watered from trying not to blink. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just stared. After what felt like hours, I heard my mom coming up the stairs. Her footsteps echoed down the hall, and suddenly the breathing stopped. I screamed for her. She rushed in, flicking on the lights. The closet door was shut tight. I told her what I'd heard, but she opened it and showed me. Nothing but clothes, shoes, and a few toys. Still, I couldn't sleep that night. The next morning, I told my best friend Dylan at school. He laughed at first, but when I described the breathing, he got quiet. He said something weird. My cousin said closets are doors. Like real doors, but not for people. I didn't know what that meant, but it stuck in my head. That night, I made sure the door was shut all the way and stacked books in front of it. I told myself it was silly, but it helped me sleep. For a while. Then around 3 nights later, the books were on the floor when I woke up. The door was wide open. I remember sitting up, my mouth dry, staring into the dark rectangle of the open closet. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel it. Something watching me. The air felt thick, like the room was holding its breath. I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. But then faintly I heard a whisper back. My own name, Eli. It came from the dark. From the closet, I bolted out of bed and ran to my parents' room. My dad got up angry and checked everything. He found the window slightly open and said it was probably the wind. But I knew it wasn't the wind. The voice knew my name. The days after that were blurry. I stopped sleeping in my room. I started having nightmares. In one dream, I was inside the closet, trapped. The walls were covered in scratches, and something whispered behind me. I could never see it. I'd wake up screaming, drenched in sweat. Eventually, my parents said enough was enough. My dad nailed the closet door shut. I remember him laughing as he hammered the last nail and said, "There, no more monsters." For a week, things were quiet. I almost started to believe maybe it had been my imagination, but then it started again. The first night, I woke up to a faint tapping. It was coming from the closet wall. At first, it was slow, irregular, tap, 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 tap. Then it got faster, louder. It sounded like fingernails scratching against wood. My dad told me to ignore it, that it was mice. But the scratching continued every night. The tapping turned into knocking, then whispering. One night, I pressed my ear to the wall. What I heard made my blood freeze. A voice, soft and hoarse, whispered, "Let me out." I screamed so loud my mom came running. She was shaking me, saying I was dreaming, but I wasn't. I knew what I'd heard. After that, I stopped sleeping in my room altogether. Months passed. My parents used that room for storage after that. I'd walk by sometimes and hear faint sounds inside. Rustling, breathing, sometimes tapping. They said it was the house settling. Years went by. I grew up, moved out. I forgot about it, or maybe I forced myself to. But last year, after my mom passed away, I had to clean out the old house. I hadn't been in that room in over 15 years. The air smelled stale, like dust and old wood. The closet door was still nailed shut. I remember standing there for a long time, staring at it. My heart pounded like I was a kid again. Something inside me needed to know, maybe to prove it was all just childhood fear. I grabbed a hammer and started pulling out the nails. Each creak of the wood made my stomach twist. When I pulled the door open, a cloud of dust spilled out. The air inside was cold, colder than the rest of the room, and then I saw it. The back wall of the closet wasn't just scratched, it was gouged. Deep, ragged claw marks covered every inch of the wood, and in the center, faint but clear, was something carved in jagged letters. I waited. That's when I smelled it. Something foul, like rot, like something had died years ago and been sealed inside. I stumbled back, coughing, and when I looked again, I swore I saw movement. The faintest shadow, slipping into the corner where the light didn't reach. I dropped the hammer and ran out. I locked that room and never opened it again. A few weeks later, while sorting through my mom's things, I found an old note in her handwriting. It was crumpled, hidden behind a photo frame. It said, "Eli, never open the closet again." I heard it too. When I was 12, my family moved into a quiet old house on the edge of town. My parents were thrilled. 3 bedrooms, a big backyard, and rent that seemed too good to be true. To me, it just felt wrong. The moment I stepped inside, I noticed how cold it was, even in midsummer. The walls seemed to hum faintly, like an electric vibration under the surface. I thought it was the pipes or old wiring, but when I pressed my ear to the wall, I couldn't tell where the sound was coming from. It was everywhere and nowhere at once, an endless low hum that seemed to breathe through the structure itself. The first week was uneventful. We unpacked boxes, set up our rooms, and tried to make the place feel normal. But something about that house resisted normality. The floors creaked in strange rhythms. The lights flickered in patterns that didn't make sense, and sometimes I'd swear I felt the floorboards move slightly beneath my feet, like the house was expanding and contracting around me. My bedroom was upstairs at the end of a narrow hallway. It was small but cozy enough, with an old window facing the trees out back. On my first night there, I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of that humming again, but louder, clearer. It wasn't coming from the walls this time. It was coming from under the floorboards. I could feel it vibrating through my mattress, a faint mechanical droning that seemed to pulse with a slow, deliberate rhythm. I told my dad the next morning, but he laughed it off. "Old houses make noise, buddy. Probably the plumbing. Except the hum wasn't random. It had a pattern. I started noticing that it would rise and fall at certain hours, mostly between 2 and 4 a.m. Sometimes it stopped abruptly, only to start again minutes later, almost like it was reacting to me being awake. I tried recording it with my old tape recorder once, but the next morning the tape was blank, just static. A few nights later, I was lying awake, watching the ceiling fan spin when I heard something new. A faint knock, 3 slow taps from beneath the floor, then silence. Then the hum again, louder this time, almost like it was right below my bed. The vibration made my chest tighten, and for a moment I thought I could hear whispering mixed in with it. Soft, almost like voices overlapping each other in some kind of muffled chant. I jumped out of bed and ran to my parents' room. My mom came back with me sighing and turned on the lights. Of course, the noise stopped the second she walked in. She pressed her ear to the floor, shook her head, and said she heard nothing. She looked tired, irritated even. I wanted to tell her about the whispers, but the words got stuck in my throat. I just nodded and tried to sleep on the couch. The next morning, my dad found something strange while fixing a loose floorboard in the hallway. Underneath it, wedged between the beams, was a small wooden box, old, covered in dust, with a faded carving of an eye on the lid. He laughed and said, "Must be from the previous owners," then tossed it on the kitchen counter. But when I looked at it later, I noticed that the carving wasn't just decorative, it was precise, almost ritualistic. The lines were etched deep and clean, and when I touched the wood, it felt warm. That night, the hum was worse than ever. It wasn't just under the floor now, it was inside the walls, the ceiling, everywhere. The whole house seemed to breathe in sync with it, expanding and contracting like a living thing. I pressed my hands to my ears, but I could still feel it vibrating through my bones. Then came the knocking again. 3 slow taps, and then a whisper. Underneath. I bolted downstairs, shaking, and saw that the wooden box was gone. I asked my parents, but they swore they hadn't moved it. We searched everywhere, under the counters, in drawers, even outside. It was just gone. 2 nights later, I woke up to a sound that didn't belong in any house. A low, droning hum that grew deeper, until it felt like the whole structure was vibrating apart. The glass of my window rattled. My lamp buzzed, and my bed began to shake slightly. Then silence. Total, suffocating silence. I sat up, holding my breath, waiting. That's when I heard it, someone walking under my floorboards. Slow, deliberate steps circling my bed. The wood creaked softly beneath their weight. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel it. The footsteps stopped right below me, and then faintly the voice again. "Underneath," I screamed. My dad came running, stormed into the room, and ripped up a section of the floorboards to prove nothing was there. Beneath them was nothing but packed dirt and darkness. He shone a flashlight down there. I remember how quiet it got then, how even the insects outside seemed to stop. And then for just a second, something moved in the beam of light. A shape, slick and pale, pulling back into the shadows like it was hiding. My dad swore it was a trick of the light. He covered the hole and told me to stop reading scary stories before bed. But that wasn't the end. The next week, strange things started happening. The hum began earlier each night. The lights in the hallway would flicker in perfect rhythm with it, and every now and then I'd catch movement out of the corner of my eye, shadows crawling along the edges of the walls. My mom started complaining about headaches, and my dad spent more and more time in the basement, tinkering with the circuit breakers. Then one night, the humming stopped completely. The silence was worse. I couldn't sleep. Around 3:15, I heard my mom screaming from the kitchen. I ran down, heart pounding, and found her standing by the sink, shaking. The old wooden box was back, sitting on the counter exactly where it had been before, except this time it was open. Inside was something wrapped in what looked like brittle cloth. My dad came down and unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a small object, almost like a charm. A crude figure carved from bone, shaped vaguely like a person but with no face. Just an eye carved into its chest. My mom wanted to throw it out, but my dad insisted on keeping it, saying it was part of the house's history. After that, the humming changed. It wasn't random anymore. It started forming patterns. Short bursts, pauses, then long waves, almost like breathing. And when it did, the eye on that bone figure seemed to vibrate ever so slightly. A few nights later, my dad didn't come up from the basement. My mom sent me to get him, but when I called down, there was no answer. I started down the stairs, flashlight shaking in my hand. Halfway down, I froze. The humming was coming from below, but it was deafening now, shaking the walls like something alive was trapped beneath the foundation. I saw my dad at the bottom, standing perfectly still, facing the far wall. His head was tilted and his hands hung limp at his sides. "Dad?" I whispered. He didn't move. Then, slowly, he turned his head. Not all the way, just enough that I could see his eyes. They were wide open, unfocused, like he was looking through me. And then, in a voice that wasn't quite his, he said, "It's awake." I bolted upstairs, screaming for my mom. But when we both went down together moments later, the basement was empty. The humming stopped. My dad was gone. The only thing left was that wooden box sitting on the floor, closed again. The police came, searched everything. No sign of forced entry, no footprints, nothing. They said he probably left during the night, maybe had some kind of breakdown. My mom wouldn't talk about it after that. We moved out a month later. For years I tried to forget, but sometimes late at night I'll still wake up to that faint humming sound like it's following me. I've moved apartments 3 times since then, lived in different cities, but the hum always finds me. It starts quietly, barely there, then grows until it fills the room just like before. Last month I got a package in the mail with no return address. Inside was that same small wooden box. The carving of the eye was still on the lid, except now it looked different. The lines were deeper, fresher, like it had been carved again recently. I threw it away, burned it even. But now at night when I press my ear to the wall I can hear it. The same low hum, the same whisper underneath the noise. And sometimes faintly I can hear my dad's voice calling from beneath the floorboards. Underneath. I was 6 when I first met Thomas. My parents had just divorced and my mom moved us into a small 1-story house at the edge of a quiet suburban street. It was the kind of house that always felt dim no matter how many lights you turned on, where the air seemed heavier, like it remembered too much. I didn't have friends yet. We'd just moved and I was shy. So when I started talking to Thomas, my mom thought it was normal, an imaginary friend to help me cope. At first, he only came at night. He had a soft, whispery voice, always from somewhere near my closet. I never saw him clearly. I'd ask him questions and he'd answer in short sentences, always polite, always calm. "Hi, Thomas," I'd whisper. "Are you there?" And from the dark, "I'm here." I told my mom about him once. She smiled and said, "That's nice, honey."
What's Thomas like?
I remember thinking hard about that. "He doesn't like the light," I said. Her smile faltered a little. "Oh, why not?" "He says it hurts his skin." She laughed it off, but after that, she started leaving my nightlight on. At first, that seemed to make Thomas go away. The room stayed quiet and I could sleep through the night. But about a week later, I woke up around 2 a.m. to find the nightlight off. The room was pitch black, but I could still make out the outline of my closet door, slightly open, just a sliver. And from the darkness, I heard breathing. I pulled the blanket up to my chin. "Thomas?" I whispered. He didn't answer. The breathing got closer. Then a voice, hoarse, quieter than usual. "Don't let her turn the light on again." I froze. My heart was hammering so loud I thought it would wake my mom. "Why?" I asked, my voice shaking. "She can't see me," he said. "Not yet." I didn't sleep the rest of that night. When morning came, I found the nightlight's bulb shattered on the floor. My mom blamed it on cheap wiring, bought a new one, and moved on. But Thomas didn't stop. Over the next few weeks, he started talking more, sometimes asking me questions I didn't understand. "Do you ever feel them watching you?" he'd ask. "Or do you remember before this house?" Once I asked him what he looked like. He said, "You'll see when you're ready." He wasn't like the imaginary friends other kids talked about. He didn't want to play games or tell jokes. He just lingered, always just out of sight. One night I decided to be brave. I turned on my flashlight and pointed it straight at the closet. The beam cut through the darkness, and for a split second I saw something. A figure, not small like a kid, but tall, bent forward to fit inside the closet. Its skin looked pale, almost gray, and its face, I can't describe it. It was blurry, like the light didn't want to touch it. The instant the light hit him, he whispered my name. "Eli." Then the flashlight flickered out. I screamed until my mom came running. She flipped on the overhead light, and of course there was nothing there. Just my clothes swaying slightly on their hangers. She tried to comfort me, but I could tell she was starting to worry. That night she slept in my room on a chair beside the bed. I didn't hear Thomas again until around 3 a.m. That's when my mom jolted awake. She said later she'd heard whispering near the closet. When she turned on the lamp, she swore she saw a hand, just a pale hand, sliding back into the shadows. The next morning, she sealed the closet door shut with duct tape and told me not to talk to Thomas anymore. I tried. I really did. But he found other ways to reach me. I started hearing him in the hallway, in the pipes, even through the static on the TV, always whispering the same thing. "Don't let her see me." Then things got worse. I began waking up with small scratches on my arms and neck, tiny, precise marks that looked too deliberate to be from me. My mom thought I was doing it in my sleep. She took me to a therapist who told her I was dealing with adjustment stress. I told the therapist about Thomas, and he smiled and said, "Sometimes our minds create things to help us cope." But Thomas didn't like that. That night when I got home, he whispered from the dark, "Don't tell them about me again." I asked him why. "Because I'm not made up," he said, "and neither are they." I asked who he meant by they, but he never answered. A few nights later, my mom found the duct tape ripped off the closet door. She thought I'd done it. I swore I hadn't. When she opened the door to prove there was nothing inside, we both smelled it, something foul like wet earth and rot. There was nothing visible, but the air inside was colder, thicker. She slammed it shut and called a handyman to nail the door closed. That night, Thomas was angry. His voice came from the floor this time, under my bed. It wasn't calm anymore, it was deep, guttural, almost like two voices overlapping. "Why did she close it?" he asked. I don't know," I stammered. "She shouldn't have done that," he whispered. "Now they're angry." The house started making noises after that. Constant, subtle sounds that never seemed to stop. Tapping in the walls. Footsteps in the attic. Sometimes my mom would wake up and find all the kitchen chairs turned backward, or the front door standing wide open. She said it was stress, that she was probably forgetting things, but I knew it was Thomas. Then one night I woke up to find my bed shaking. Slowly at first, then violently. I screamed for my mom. The lights flickered, and from the closet, sealed shut with nails now, I heard pounding. Like something was trying to get out. My mom burst into the room, pulled me out of bed, and dragged me into the hallway. We both watched as the door trembled with every hit. Then silence. The next morning, she called a priest. He came, sprinkled holy water, said prayers, and told us the house felt heavy. After he left, things quieted down. For about a week. Then one night I woke up to find my mom standing by the closet, just standing there staring at it. Her eyes were wide open, but she didn't blink. I whispered, "Mom?" She turned slowly toward me and her voice sounded wrong, deeper. "He says you can come with us now," I screamed. She blinked, shook her head, and looked confused. "What?" she said. "What's wrong?" She didn't remember getting out of bed. The next day, we packed our things and moved out. She told me we'd never talk about the house again. Years passed. I grew up, moved on, or tried to, but sometimes when I'm alone in a quiet room, I hear him again. Just faintly. That same low whisper. "I'm here." It happened again a few months ago. I was living alone by then, in an apartment across town. I hadn't thought about Thomas in years. Then one night, my phone started ringing around 2:17 a.m. The caller ID said unknown. I answered. At first, there was only static. Then through the crackle, a voice I hadn't heard in over a decade. "Why did you leave me?" My chest went cold. "Thomas?" I whispered. He didn't answer, but I could hear breathing on the line. Then slowly he said, "You shouldn't have closed the door. They're still here." I hung up and turned every light on in the apartment. I didn't sleep. The next morning, my closet door was open. I moved again. Changed numbers. But no matter where I go, it follows. The lights flicker sometimes, the air hums, and I can feel something watching me from the shadows. Last week, my neighbor's kid came over while his mom was cooking. He wandered into my room, stood by the closet, and said, "Who's your friend?" I froze. "What friend?" "The tall man," he said, pointing. He said his name is Thomas. That night, I taped the closet door shut. I'm writing this now because the tape keeps peeling off by itself. Every time I check, it's just a little more loose, a little more open. And just now, as I type this, I can hear him again, whispering from the dark, "Don't let the light in.